Alrighty, so in today's video, I'll be recapping pretty much the entire month of August, the most important updates as what's been going on as far as China goes. So this has been the month of August for the stock market, United States stock market. It started right here in the front. So this is August 1st. I started the month pretty solid. And then around the midway points of the month, it then decided to take a pretty drastic downturn. So the reasoning for this, in the beginning of the month, Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan to meet with the leaders of Taiwan and let them know pretty much that the United States has their back with what's been going on. They're determined to preserve democracy. After this visit to Taiwan, China seemed to have some very strong responses to it. They didn't like the fact that Pelosi, who was representing the United States, was going to sound like they were going to strengthen Taiwan in sort of a sense. So seeing as China didn't like that, this back end of the month turned into China making some more noise around Taiwan. There were Chinese drones that were shot down in Taiwanese airspace, which took place, I believe, Friday. Yep, that would have been on Friday. Chinese drones were shot down by the Taiwanese military. There were first warning shots fired at the drone, and then they just decided to take it down entirely. So now this whole situation with Taiwan and China has been escalating. The big question now is China going to invade Taiwan, basically? And there's a reason behind why China wants to take over Taiwan. But anyway, earlier this week, the Biden administration asked the United States to approve a $1.1 billion arms sale to Taiwan, which was later approved and granted. So pretty much the United States sent $1.1 billion worth of military equipment over to Taiwan in order for them to protect themselves against whatever China has in plan in the coming months. This arms sale consisted of 60 anti-ship missiles and 100 air-to-air missiles. So as you can imagine, China didn't like this deal going through. So they then sent out a warning saying they would have countermeasures if the United States decided to approve of that, which, by the way, the United States did decide to approve it. So yeah, $1.1 billion was sent in military equipment to Taiwan. The Chinese embassy said how much they opposed the proposition and how that would severely jeopardize the relationship between the United States and China and Taiwan. So moving further into the why, right? Why does China want anything to do with Taiwan? Well, here's why. Taiwan dominates the chip making space, semiconductor space. Due to the pandemic, we've had a heightened demand for semiconductors and not enough supply, right? And there's been more attention on Taiwan because they are one of the biggest exports for said semiconductors. They are home to some of the largest contracts between Apple, Qualcomm, and even NVIDIA, which earlier this week the United States told NVIDIA to stop exporting to China. So now NVIDIA is getting involved with this entire process. So pretty much Taiwan is pretty much number one in the space as far as semiconductors go. The United States and Germany have been, reaching out the most to Taiwan as far as chips goes, because we've had increased demands here in the United States, and we don't produce hardly any chips in-house. So Taiwan accounted for more than 60% of the global revenue last year as far as semiconductors went. They were accounted for 60%. So Taiwan had 60% of revenue regarding the semiconductors. And that was thanks to TSM, which is Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturer. And Taiwan accounted for 63% of the market share. TSM holding 54% of the market share. So the reason China wants Taiwan is because they realize that Taiwan is home to 60% of the revenue of global semiconductors. And considering the pandemic has called for a greater demand on semiconductors and not enough supply, China wants to become that number one supplier of semiconductors. And if we take a look at China and their imports and exports, China was the United States' largest supplier of goods in 2020, which is an incredible statistic. And China was the United States' third largest goods export market. So China is pretty much just trying to grow their war chest and have access to more things that they can then export to the rest of the world, and which they can tax. But looking at the Taiwan exports, their exports account for around 70% of their total GDP, and is composed mostly of electronics, information, communication, and audio-video products, putting TSM at 54% of that. So 54% in one place accounts for the entire GDP of Taiwan, which is why China has been trying to make some moves over there. And if we look at the Semiconductor ETF over the past month, it started the month pretty decent. It had a little uptick. However, it fell here. It managed to reclaim it back, but around the midpoint of the month is when the news started to escalate. And ever since, it's just been on a massive downturn. So we'll see, where this ends up for the month of September as we are getting started in a new month here. But it pretty much erased all of its gains for the month of August, and it is not looking good. So will China be the reason for the bubble to pop? We shall stick around and find out. And then diving further into the semiconductor space and why it's so appealing to China. If you take a look here, if you don't know anything about semiconductors, semiconductors are the brains of modern electronics. Enabling technologies critical to United States economic growth, national security, and global competitiveness. Semiconductors have driven advances in communications, computing, healthcare, military systems, transportation, clean energy, and countless other applications. I mean, the list goes on. From phones here, we have Apple, who gets all of their computer chips through TSM, the Taiwan company. We have computing. Again, we have Apple and semiconductors such as NVIDIA and AMD, who specialize in computer chips. We have advances in healthcare, military systems, transportations, and clean energy, considering that the entire world is trying to shift to electronic vehicles, and transportation and clean energy are a major component in the advancement of that. So if China can take over this space successfully, they will become the number one powerhouse globally in the entire world. If they can control the exports for such items, they can then control the price, which then affects economics across the world.